We got the story from the Post Millennial. Major U.S. banks shutter 33 locations in just 2 weeks. Major U.S. banks are closing down branch locations and shifting to online services. And something we saw in Australia, they're getting rid of the ability to withdraw cash from your banks. What we're seeing here, I think, is just market downturn. The market just crashed. The economy is not good. People are struggling. And so I don't know if any of these other ancillary things matter. If we're really talking about an election that's based on the issues, it's the economy, stupid. And regular people, you can lie to them all day and night. But when they go to the grocery store, if they look at that bill and they scoff, whoever's in the administration now is in trouble.
Let's get really cynical, though. Do you actually think that we're going to have any kind of semblance of a fair election?
No. I'm just saying if this was really about who wins the argument.
And that's the hypothetical. And I think that's where people are forgetting. Because what I keep seeing is I listen to a lot of MAGA people, but I also will jump in on Twitter Spaces where people I disagree with, and I hide there anonymously and just lurk out and listen. And I want to see what they have to say. Today, there was a space, and Lev Parnas was in it, and they were talking about they don't think that Trump actually got shot in the ear because they've apparently never seen how superglue works when you have a small wound that you can actually close up with superglue, and you wouldn't see it very easily. And as a paramedic who's actually done that, and I've sealed up ears before from dog bites and other things, it works. It works really well. The thing is
just
that
making that up.
What's that? Super glue?
I know you're not.
God, you should totally have 99-cent super glue in your pack. It has all the.
It was invented for wounds, wasn't it?
The stuff is called Dermabond that they use in the hospital. So it's a $40 tube, but you can get the 99-cent tube and it works just as well. It just burns a little bit longer.
But if you said that in one of those spaces, someone would be like, "He's not a real paramedic. That's not true at all."
I've actually taken my fingers down to the bone with a knife by being a bonehead because I'm just a regular dude, and I've cut myself down here and I've sealed them up with super glue, and overnight I was able to use them again. You're not going to tear it open; it'll close up, especially a really clean wound. But that's not what I want to talk about. Think about this.
Sorry, I'm derailing you.
These people rolled 100 miles an hour at a cliff the size of the Grand Canyon. They indicted him, and they got him in Florida. They got him in D.C. They got him in Georgia. They got him in New York. Okay, state and federal charges on all levels. They were able to only get one of them across the finish line. Does anyone actually think that we are not going to see Donald Trump? There's a very, very real possibility that the guys in New York decide, we bought this ticket. We're taking that ride. We're not going to drive up to the edge of this cliff at 100 miles an hour, stop and look at the view. I think they're going over it. And I think there's a strong probability he ends up in Rikers because that's what they are prepared to do. I don't see any fear of the weak candidate or the fact that they swapped out somebody in the most undemocratic move despite crying about how they're going to save democracy. There's nothing that tells me these people have any fear about what's coming up.
Or
I will.
Desperate, right?
I just want to add this real quick as well. In about 20 minutes, we're going to be in the hurricane.
Oh, man.
And so I got a big warning. My phone went off. We got a warning. So if the show disappears, you know why? It is not the CIA.
Is it Debbie? Is that what it's called?
I don't know.
It's Debbie.
So
It's
let's say
Debbie.
the election isn't
Always
fair
Debbie.
and then Trump loses in 2024. I think we're going to be in for such another turbulent 4 years as Trump will inevitably say the election was fake or stolen and will have his hold on the Republican Party for another at least 4 years and would run again.
I don't agree.
You don't think he'd run again in 2028?
I don't think he can.
Oh, I definitely think it would be the revenge
at
tour.
83 or whatever?
Yeah, if he's still kicking. If he still wanted it, then I think Republicans wouldn't have a choice.
I don't think so.
You don't think Trump would want it, or you don't think he'd get the support
Both.
if he wanted it?
I think he's going to be in his 80s, and he's going to be like...
Joe
be like,
Biden
"I am a
almost did it. The
billionaire."
Democrats didn't seem to have any
I
problem
don't think
with
Joe
it.
Biden almost did it. I think you're misestimating.
Yeah.
He didn't even come close.
I think if they pushed off that debate until September, they would have had no other choice, and it was actually a huge miscalculation by the Joe Biden campaign to have that debate earlier than any other campaigns they ever do for general elections.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just was.
I think the Biden campaign miscalculated by having the debate when they did, but I don't think that Joe Biden almost got reelected because I think he was already facing really serious scrutiny before the debate.
He was the presumptive nominee at the time.
He was sort of the presumptive nominee for sure, but it's not like his party was happy.
So wait,
about
that's
it.
to say you guys don't think that Trump will want it, or that the party wouldn't give it to him if he did want it?
I can see it going either way.
Because I think if he
will-
wanted it, it's his for the taking, and there is no other clear alternative who could try to primary
We're talking
him.
about like 4 years from now, right? Like it's hard to say what will come
Political
up.
time that feels
We've
like
been
tomorrow.
No, it doesn't, because if you think back 4 years ago, so much has happened since then. I mean, it feels like it's tomorrow because we think in election cycles, but ultimately we pack huge histories into every 4 years. I mean, Nancy Pelosi used to be friends with Biden, and now she's like, yeah, I didn't try to pressure him out, and I haven't talked to him since.
She sent him that nice farm in Wisconsin where they have all the pretty grass.
Right.
And some
like,
guy with the
all
suppressed
kinds
22
of
or
political
whatever.
dynasty shift, especially if we're thinking about like the Supreme Court, right? The next president will probably name multiple Supreme Court, or at least nominate multiple Supreme Court justices. It's unclear to me what the landscape will look like in 4 years. And I think, maybe if Trump didn't get elected and he wanted it, he would get reelected. On the other hand, he could also be this political symbol, this martyr who was just stolen from, however his base will say it.
I think you guys are missing the ego play of Trump. I just couldn't imagine him taking that step down. It's just un-Trump-like, frankly.
I think if he lost again, it would make him bigger than.
It wouldn't be losing again. In his rhetoric, it would have been stolen again.
Whatever it is, if he doesn't go to the White House now, it will become even bigger, and I think it will potentially really consolidate the movement behind him. Even if he's not at the top of it, they will say, like, we have to avenge him in some way. I'm not talking about political violence, FBI, who's watching.
Politically avenge in the ballot box.
I'm talking about people saying, like, we need to elect on every level people who represent our values because this one guy we really wanted to didn't get in.
We also have I can't remember a time when this was the case, a first-term president lame duck for 6 months left. Look who's running the country right now. Has anyone just realized that, like, whenever you see anything, like Biden pops up and he says like a bunch of stumble slurs and people are like, that's just what he does. 5 weeks ago, that was insane. Yeah. Nobody would have, they would have covered for him. And now he walks out there and he's like, I got the 4 fingers. I don't know where you put the ring on. I guess you put it on your thumb and you're going.
Now he's working on his political achievements with this absolute garbage hostage deal. I don't know if we spent any time talking about it.
But the Russia trade?
The hostage deal is
Didn't they almost
horrible.
They almost sent Biden on the plane. Wasn't he trying to climb on the plane and disappear? He was
where we
fly to
looped
Russia?
in multiple EU allies to have to trade Russian spies and criminals with blood on their hands
and we left people behind. Like,
can we at
it
least
was not
admit-
even like a perfect deal that we got everyone out. Like, we left stuff on the table. It's a
hostage deals
negotiation.
incentivize more hostages to be taken. Unfortunately, that's just the political calculation.
But Joe Biden is going to tout this as his huge geopolitical accomplishment, which is crazy.
But the big win for me is that the Russian FSB assassin that they got out of Germany looks like what I want a Russian assassin to look like. He had
The optics are great for Russians.
He had a steely gaze. He looked like what I expect a Russian assassin to be.
And the story about you guys have probably all seen this, but there were Russian spies in, was it Poland in Estonia, in one of the Eastern European countries, and they were posing as being like Argentinian to the point where their children spoke Spanish, had no idea they were Russian, and when they got taken back to Russia on the plane, were completely blown away by this. They had no idea. Putin greeted them by saying Buenas noches because they don't speak Russian, because that's how deep their parents were undercover.
Yes.
That's wild to me.
Do not underestimate how dedicated these people are.
Yeah, the Russians are their spy network is deeply entrenched in Europe.
I heard that the president before Biden was working for the Russians.
That's what I heard too.
Yeah, crazy.
Well,
Discredited multiple times, but I still hear it.
I heard
might be
that
coming back
Biden
for a
is
second
working
term.
for Xi Jinping, so just pick your enemy here.
Well, he had that really naughty
Tim
phone
Waltz
call.
is like, have you seen the Tim Waltz China stuff?
How in the world was he in the military with the security clearance and like hanging
Flying
out and
to China.
living in China
Right.
briefly? How is that possible? I don't know if you can do that.
Yeah.
I was not in the National Guard, so I only have active duty experience. But like, you couldn't even go to Mexico. Like, you can't go to Mexico. They're like, you're like, hey, I want to go to this wedding in Mexico, and they're like, sorry, it's in Mexico. That's a no-go zone right now. You can't go to Cancun for your friend's wedding, and you're like, I guess I'm not going.
Did you get a diplomatic passport?
I did when I was in the FBI,
Oh, okay.
and they didn't take it back, so I have my expired dip passport. It has the the red.
Does everybody who serves get a diplomatic passport? Like when you're working for the U.S. Government? Like if you're a soldier? or something?
No. So when I was an agent, you could get it. I just went over across the way to headquarters. They did them out of the Hoover building. If you thought you might need it and there was a possibility you might travel for work, you could get it. So it wasn't like, it wasn't like an exciting thing or wasn't granted to you. If you thought it was a possibility, you can go through the rigmarole of filling out the paperwork and sending it over.
What does it do for you?
Nothing. It's the same passport. So it's red. So you'd use it on official duties. And so they basically log you in as dip status or as you are represented the U.S. government. You're there for official process. But I've heard of people using it on their personal travels as well. I had a regular passport as well. I had a blue and I had a red, and I don't know the advantage unless you're actually doing something that is very specific in a diplomatic mission, State Department or whatever. For what I was going to be doing, like I didn't want to travel ever because the places they would have sent me to would be like looking at Chinese spies, and that seemed like it was not a good place to go. I definitely wasn't going to go to China. I knew that much.
Tim
They stole all
Waltz-
of our data.
Tim Waltz has like some weird Chinese connections.
Yeah, it's so strange.
Yeah.
And remember, China is where we pseudo boycotted the Olympics, but we actually didn't. We sent all of our athletes. We just didn't send any high-ranking officials. And then we told the U.S. athletes, don't use your cell phone there because they will steal your information.
It's already done.
I don't understand the U.S.'s relationship with China, and I think it's very weird under the Biden administration. Thanks for watching this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to check out the live show Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. on this channel. Subscribe, and we'll see you all there.